Alrighty, well, welcome back to a very sad Caffeinated Cruiser. First, sorry if there's noise in the background. I'm kind of near a construction site, so it might get a little noisy. And I know it's been a little bit since I made a video, and I promised a video about this bike, so here we go. But I'll tell you a little bit more about why I am sad. So today I am actually selling this bike, and I love this bike. I've had it for a little over 2 years. I think I bought it. It's a 2020 Husqvarna Svartpilen 701. And I think I bought it brand new in 2020 or January of 21. I can't remember which year it was. Either way, I guess it would be 21. Either way, I've had it for quite some time now. I've put just over, 7,700 miles on it. So I've actually ran it in quite a bit. Things I've done to it: I put on heated grips, I did the bar and mirrors, I did a Leo Vente slip-on exhaust, which I probably should have it facing the other way so you can see it, but whatever, it is what it is. LED turn signals, and just general care and maintenance, and ridden it a lot, bombed around on a lot, tons of wheelies, and just generally being a hooligan. All in all, this is a perfect bike. I think most of us probably had heard our dads tell stories about, the motorcycle they sold, when they started having kids, or the sweet sports car that they had at one point or another. And this is kind of another one of those classic tales. Long story short, just to bring everyone up to speed, and sorry again there's not been more videos, a couple things happened. One, I took a new job, which has been great, but it was a little bit of a pay cut. So that's part of why I'm selling this bike, just to free up some capital each month and payments and insurance and whatnot. And then me and my wife found out that we have our first baby on the way in September of this year. So with that, we are super excited, and by no means am I disappointed about that. I can't wait to be a father. But all that being said, with the baby on the way, it got us thinking about needing to save more money to buy a house, and just generally cut down on our expenses each month. So the next logical step was either I have to find a way to make a lot more money, and I took this job to have less stress and more time at home. So, picking up more hours isn't really an option. So that just comes to sell the bike. And unfortunately, this is the perfect bike. I think this will always be the one that I'll tell everyone is the bike that got away. That, for years I'll be showing pictures and saying, that was my favorite bike. That's the bike I wish I never had sold. That's the bike I'd get back if I ever could. I'll tell you a little bit about the bike, what it's like to ride. So I probably have one of the longer ownership reviews of this bike, but again, 7,000 plus miles on it. Things that happened along the way: there's only one bad spot, and about 500 miles into it, the slave cylinder blew out, which is common on this engine and this bike. So I had that replaced under warranty and then upgraded to the Recluse slave cylinder. Had no problems after that. Like everyone, the instrument cluster is not pretty, but it's functional. Other than that, though, this bike's a ripper. It's very loud. I got the Leo Vente full system exhaust on it, and so it's super loud, big single cylinder thumper. And as far as characteristics to ride, it just rips. It pulls super hard everywhere. It pulls a lot harder than you'd think a single cylinder 700cc bike would, but it makes a ton of torque. Horsepower numbers aren't super impressive or anything. It's probably, I think it's somewhere in the 75-ish range, but it feels like a lot more than that. And again, the way it pulls from pretty much anywhere is just amazing, especially top of second and third gear. Even with traction control on, which will cut the wheelies and stuff and limit power to the rear wheel, it'll still pop up the front like crazy. All around, just a beautiful bike. I think this just has one of the best styling packages of any bike I've ever seen. You've got this sweet cutout for the knees. You've got the 701 emblem. I might actually have to spin it around so you guys can see the other side, just so you can see what it looks like. But, the LED headlight, is super cool. The rear taillight, super unique. And again, just all around, just a gorgeous, gorgeous bike. I've ridden this a little bit off-road, like you can see here. I've ridden it down some trails. I kind of went into some spots that said do not trespass, but gravel pits and whatnot, and bombed around. It's got semi-knobby tires on it. They're not amazing off-road, but they do a decent job. And even with the big, I think it's a 19-inch front wheel with this spoked wheel in the front here, a lot of people I think would be surprised by how much with these Pirelli, what are they, MT60 RS tires, they're really sticky and they stick to the road super well. So I never ever had an issue with trusting the tires or not having enough lean angle. I'd hustle this thing quite a bit and push it around corners really fast and, you know, get as close as I could to a knee down. I'm sure somebody who's a better rider could get a knee down easy, but, you know, me being fairly basic, it wasn't going to happen normally. Brakes, super tight, you know, Brembos, the rear brake, super tight. The traction control, for the most part, always was great. I've had big rainstorms come down on me and just pour all over the place and never had an issue with this bike. No issues with electronics, no issues with the maintenance or anything. You know, oil change regularly, chain cleaning. I did have the dealer do the 200 mile service, which is basically a valve check. Didn't need it though. Again, perfect. Some other little recalls and little bolts or whatever that come loose and this and that, and they looked over that. But again, just a phenomenal bike. I think as far as just a pure riding experience, this is a very unique bike. You know, you're upright on it if you want to be, but the way it pushes you, this bike just wants to rev like crazy. It wants to be revved out. It wants to be pushed, and then you end up, you know, tucked down here and bobbing and weaving through traffic. And, you know, there's a spot in the freeway near us where I probably shouldn't out myself, but in the past, you kind of come over this hill and you can see all the way down across this little valley on the freeway. And if you, with a downhill, you know, heading downhill, drop a couple of gears and then fully pin it, this thing would hit about 140 on the dot, and then it would just redline. But again, plenty of speed on a you know, 350-pound naked bike. What else? Yeah, the quick shifter. You know, I've heard a lot about the KTM quick shifters, how they're not always reliable and they miss gears and this and that. And honestly, yeah, it does that. It's one of those things about having a European bike. I would call it character, right? You know, it doesn't do the thing very well all the time, but it does it. But the trick is with this bike, keep the RPMs high, keep it above 5,000, and then just bang through those gears up or down, and it just loves to go. And every single person who's ridden this bike, without fail, when they got on it, you know, everyone goes, well, I don't know, I like shifting gears. But I'm like, just wait. It's not that you're not shifting gears. It's just a whole different experience. But you just open the throttle and just bang, 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 bang through the gears. And all my friends immediately, you know, the first thing is just like, whoa, like breathless. You know, again, it's just a beautiful bike. It's a looker. It gets tons of compliments. It gets a lot of attention. It rips. It's loud. It's not the most comfortable for long-term rides. You know, I've taken my wife on some longer rides on here a few times, and this back seat is definitely not great. There's not a lot of space, and it feels like you're going to get, you know, dropped off the back every time the rider accelerates. But for me, it fit me well. You know, for reference, I've got a 32-inch inseam, really long legs. I'm only about 5'10", but for my height, long legs. You know, I can flat foot pretty easily on either side. And again, the weight is just super manageable on this bike. It's very, very light, and most of the weight's held fairly low down anyways. But the riding, you know, every once in a while, lower back would get stiff or whatever. You know, the seat's basically a plank, but never really bothered me. It's got fully adjustable suspension front and rear. I think I only adjusted it one time, and it pretty much was set up perfect for me, so I never really did much with it. And again, I'm a 5'10", about 150 pounds. You know, the heated grips I put on it are lovely. It made it definitely a bike that I like to ride often. Compared to like my Magna, for example, this is definitely the type of bike where people would say you sit on it rather than in it, and that's how I'd characterize this bike as well. You're definitely up on it. You get a lot of wind blast versus my Magna, which is a lot more comfortable even when it's colder, just because you're sitting behind the big tank. You know what? Let me flip this around. I'll show you guys the other side of it. Whew, it's getting a little hot out here. I'm still in my work clothes from today. It was casual Friday. So yeah, anyways, I bought this bike for probably, I think I paid maybe $7 out the door, $7.5. I can't exactly remember. It was fine, you know. I got a low interest rate on it, so I jumped on it, and I think I'm gonna get about $6,500 for it this evening. And honestly, looking at comparisons for this bike, there's not a lot out there that are selling here in the U.S. at least. But it seems like a lot of people are pushing for 8, 9, whatever. And I think if I waited long enough, I could probably get that from it. But the longer I wait, the less likely it is I am to sell it. And on top of that, the less likely it is for us to have the extra money for the house and, when the baby comes. So this is basically just a love letter to this bike. Really, it's just been a phenomenal bike to own. I love it. It never fails to get looks from people and, head nods and whatever else. People always come up and talk about it and ask what it is. And everyone's surprised when I say it's a Husqvarna or Husqvarna, whatever, however you say it. Everyone's always surprised and they go, the lawnmower company? Because that's all they're known for here in the U.S., I guess, other than their dirt bikes a little bit. And I'm like, yep, that's the one and the same, but they make some sweet, sweet bikes. And again, I had the KTM Duke 390 as my first bike. So this was kind of a natural upgrade, and I love that 390 motor. And I'm going to ditch my jacket. I'm starting to sweat. But like I was saying, I love that 390 motor. It, lots of fun, lots of torque, lots of character. And this is about the same. It honestly feels like the same bike, just bigger, just across the board, just rips. One quick note, while I have it in front of me and these things are fresh on my mind, the Leo Venture full system exhaust, I don't know if you guys can tell, but I made my own little bracket for it out of some cheap hardware. The mid pipe here was about an inch too short to mount, and I looked it up and it seems like everyone has had that problem. I don't know if anyone else found other creative ways or built their own little, extension piece, but basically I just remounted it here. I probably could have done that somewhere else, maybe made it a little prettier. But it was functional, is what it is, and I was going to fix it eventually if I kept it. Like I said, I'm basically just talking about how much I love this bike and how much I'll miss it. Throttle control, a little bit herky-jerky like you'd expect from a big single cylinder, especially with some of the stuff I did. It probably could use a tune, but again, it wasn't anything bad. I wasn't getting a ton of back pops or anything that were crazy. It just all around just is a great bike, and I know I keep saying that, but it is what it is. So yeah, unless I think of anything else, I think this is about it. I might see if I can get some close-up shots of it so you guys can get an idea of what it looks like. And if you haven't seen it before, you can kind of get the full 360-degree scope. The tail light was super cool looking. I'll turn on the battery real quick. But yeah, just an all-around, just beautiful bike. The perfect ride, really, for when it comes to ripping around town and even short freeway blasts. Just the perfect bike. So much character, so much fun. I think the only thing about this bike that I would say is a downside, but not even really, it wasn't meant to do it, is long freeway stints. After about 15-20 minutes, cruising at 80 miles an hour on the freeway, I was ready to get off this bike most of the time, so I try to take back roads, which it's funny. I do the same speed, 6 is hard not to on this bike because it just wants you to go faster all the time. But I'd be cruising around at like 70, 80 miles an hour on back roads, and that's totally fine, but for something about how the wind hits you on the freeway is different. But yeah, I guess this is it. So to anybody out there, I guess I'd say if you get a chance to get the dream bike, just make sure you pay it off early. Make sure you do what you can to sustain it so you can hold on to it longer. Again, I think this is going to be that bike for me that I always look back on, and I always say it's the one that got away. It's the perfect bike that unfortunately I let go of. And to be clear, my wife's not making me. She's as sad as I am. This bike is kind of how we got introduced. I just bought this bike when I met her, and all I could do was talk about it. And it is what it is. It's just one of those times in life to make a little sacrifice. And I got another bike, and we were just talking about it, and there'll always be other bikes, and that's the thing. Everyone knows that as a biker, if you had a bike, you want another bike, and once you get that other bike, you want another bike, and there's an endless amount of cool bikes out there to try. But if you find the perfect bike, do what you can to hang on to it. Work those extra hours, pay it off sooner. Don't get fooled into just paying the payments down, because eventually you might need that money back every month, and it's definitely harder. So I hope the next owner enjoys it. I hope he rides careful. I hope that he gets a ton of fun out of it. And maybe someday, maybe I can buy it back from him or get another one someday. I'll definitely always be on the lookout for this bike. It is such a unique and beautiful thing. I've seen one or two. I think I've seen one 701 Vitpillen here in Michigan, and I've seen probably half dozen of the 401s, either the Svartpilen 401 or the Vitpillen. Yeah, and I guess again, while I'm sitting here, I might as well just keep chatting about it until the guy shows up here in 45 minutes. When I purchased this bike, you know, I really wanted the Vitpillen just because of how cool it looked, how aggressive. You know, it was to me a naked sports bike or naked roadster is really what it was. And when I went to the dealership and started looking at them, not only did I really fall in love with this kind of like two-tone black and bronze with a silver line, I thought it was really cool looking, but the knobby tires just look great in my opinion, and then the spokes. And sitting on it as well, getting slightly more upright, I found it was a lot more comfortable. And yeah, looking back though, 10 out of 10 times I get the Svartpilen over the Vitpillen any day of the week. And I know you obviously can convert them, and they're basically the same. At the end of the day, as long as you have this engine, you're not going to be disappointed. It's a sweet bike. But yeah, this ended up being the right call for sure. It was just a lovely bike to own, lovely bike to ride, and it gobbled up twisty roads. You know, oh gosh, I'm gonna get choked up here. Yeah, long story short, there'll always be the one that got away. Everybody's got that story, and everybody's got the bike they wish they never sold. And I think this will be mine. So, this has been a sad, long, rambling, caffeinated cruiser. Thank you, anyone who watches. Thanks for hanging out with me. I probably will make some more videos on this bike and just kind of reminisce about it and maybe compare and contrast to other things in a similar category, you know, MT-07s and SV650s and other bikes I've ridden. Just so if anyone's curious and was like me the moment they saw this bike, fell in love with it, they can make a good decision. You know, I've ridden all those bikes, and obviously, as you can tell, I'd probably pick this one over them, but I can get more into details of why. Yeah. So, again, signing off. Ride safe. Take it easy. Thanks for joining me, and hopefully I'll see you guys again soon. Peace.